Hi, I'm Whitney Espich, the CEO of the MIT Alumni Association, and I hope you enjoy this digital production created for alumni and friends like you.
Hello, and welcome to my fellow MIT alumni, family, and friends. Thank you for joining us today and coming together as one community from around the world to share in the MIT Alumni Association's first of its kind day-long virtual celebration of the MIT experience. Coming up now, our next program, Challenge-Driven Leadership in a World of Change. My name is Hope Barrett. I graduated in 1998 with an undergraduate degree in chemical engineering. I will be serving as your moderator today. I love being involved in the MIT community, and I have been volunteering for the past 22 years. I started as an educational counselor right after I graduated, and now I am the regional chair for the Educational Council in the Atlanta region. I am also on the MIT Alumni Association Board of Directors, where I enjoy being a voice for the alumni community. When I'm not focusing on MIT, I study digital audiences for CNN. As a news junkie since elementary school, I'm proud to be one of the few chemical engineers at CNN. As a reminder, our webinar today is being broadcast live. Throughout the program, you may submit your questions using the Q&A feature located in your Zoom toolbar. Questions will be held until the Q&A portion of the presentation, and we look forward to a good discussion with our audience today. Please don't be shy. This presentation will be very interactive, and it will allow our audience to engage with the speaker using a polling feature throughout the live session. For best audience experience, we suggest you use your computer to view and follow along the webinar, and if possible, use a separate device, such as a smartphone or a tablet, or open maybe a different browser window to participate in the polling. This will allow you to easily toggle back and forth between our presentation and the questions. You can have the polling site ready at questionburst.com. If you forget or it's unclear, instructions will appear again throughout the presentation in the chat window. I'm very pleased to introduce today our speaker, Hal Gregerson. Hal Gregerson is a senior lecturer in leadership and innovation at the MIT Sloan School of Management and former executive director of the MIT Leadership Center. As an inspirational speaker and executive coach, Hal has worked with such renowned organizations as Chanel, Disney, Patagonia, UNICEF, and the World Economic Forum. He has been recognized by Thinkers 50 as one of the world's top 20 most innovative minds. He has authored or co-authored 10 books translated into 15 languages, including most recently the bestseller, Questions Are the Answer, a breakthrough approach to your most vexing problems at work and in life. Hal, welcome, and thank you for being with us today.
Hope, thank you very much for that warm introduction, and I am equally grateful for every one of you out there around the world spending your time today trying to learn and how to navigate your way through this amazingly unpredictable world we're in the middle of. I came to MIT about 6 years ago after having taught at a variety of universities around the world and having studied some of the most innovative companies in the world for over a decade with Clayton Christensen at Harvard and other colleagues. One of the things I first noticed as soon as I arrived at MIT was that people behave here the way they behave in these really innovative companies around the world. And I'm not just saying that to be nice to MIT, it's really what I experienced. And so I ended up talking with Deborah Ancona, the director and founder of the Leadership Center. And I said, what's the deal here? What is this brand of MIT leadership, given that they're so innovative when they come out of here? And what does that look like? And so we ended up studying MIT students, faculty, alumni like you, and trying to figure out what does it mean to be a leader coming out of MIT. The first thing we learned was most MIT alumni don't like the word leader. It's almost like anti-leader leadership. what they do is really what we call challenge-driven or problem-led leadership. It's not about me, it's about the challenge, the issue, the opportunity. That's the thing that I follow. And once we define a big enough challenge that other people would want to jump on the team because of their expertise, then we together move forward where I've got my expertise, you've got yours, and a variety of other people come in with their deep expertise. Somebody steps up here, somebody steps back there, somebody steps in here. You know as well as I, it's data-driven. Where's the data? It's experiment and prototyping driven, trying. And at the end of the day, that deep commitment to problem finding and solving is what MIT leaders do so exceptionally well. And guess what? That's exactly how people like Jeff Bezos at Amazon or Diane Green, if one of the co-founders of VMware, they would define themselves the same way. Problem solvers, challenge driven. And so what I'd like to do is talk about the role of inquiry or questions in that approach to leadership. And we all know we're facing a lot of challenges right now. So let's take a quick look at someone probably everyone on this webinar knows, Bob Langer. Over 300,000 citations, that is a phenomenal number. But beyond those citations of his lab's work, it's the impact they make. And if you talk to Bob Langer about what's the starting point for them, first is they choose big challenges. And I think that's endemic to MIT students, alumni, and faculty. We choose big challenges. That's what he's done. But then if you probe a little deeper and you ask Bob about the role of inquiry or questioning in that work he's doing, tackling those challenges, and he will instantly shoot back that he watches people from young to getting into his labs, grade school, high school, college, even to some degree graduate school before they get to his lab. And his view is people are mostly taught to generate great answers, but not to ask great questions. And so it's no wonder that he makes this very powerful statement about questions, which is, if you think about the way you're judged in life, not just at work, Bob says, don't think it is by how good your answers are, it's by how good your questions are. And then Bob would tell you in the next breath, one of his big roles at Langer Labs is trying to help people make the transition from being answer-driven leaders to question-driven leaders. Because at the end of the day, when we're tackling big challenges, taking on massive levels of uncertainty, there are no answers sitting out there. It's the questions that are the keys that unlock those answers to be created. Bob knows this extremely well. In a completely different domain, you've got Oprah Winfrey, who has interviewed arguably thousands and thousands of people over the course of her lifetime. She has one single question that's at the core of her interviewing process. What is your intent? It's a powerful question. And she uses that question among others because she knows, like Bob Langer, ask the right questions and the answers will always reveal themselves. A colleague of mine, a good friend, close friend, Clay Christensen, who passed away earlier this year, unfortunately, here up at Harvard, Clay basically knows the exact same thing. You know, it's getting the right questions that matter. And so here's the issue. We all know this to be true, I think, every one of us. But the question I have is, if I just got hired by you or at Langer Labs or whatever your organization is, and you told me that questions really mattered, here's my question. How do I ask better questions? In other words, what would I do differently in how I behave and go about my everyday work in order to ask the better question? And by that better question, I mean a catalytic question, borrowing from the word catalyst, which is, how might I find a question that literally challenges a probably false assumption in a way that doesn't destroy us, but gives us energy to do something about it? Those are fearless, tough questions that move our challenge forward and move the world forward. So here's my question. How do you behave in order to ask better questions? Just think to yourself for just a moment on that one. My hunch is you probably have a reasonably good answer. And I'd like to build on what you already know by talking about a couple of frameworks that are super powerful for helping us ask the better question to make progress on our challenges. Here's where it comes from. For the last 5 or 6 years, I've interviewed 200 plus leaders, founders, CEOs, innovators. These are people who have changed the world to figure out how do they behave in order to ask the better question. These are founders, CEOs, senior leaders, generally at companies like these around the world. These are some of the individuals. They're good at what they do in terms of inquiry. And I would distill 3 million words of interview transcripts and all of the content analysis of that data into 3 simple words if I were telling you the answer of how do you ask better questions. Compose and wait. You might be thinking to yourself, what are you talking about here? Compose and wait. Compose conditions and wait for the right questions. I learned that phrase about 5 years ago when I came to MIT. I also bumped into this photographer from National Geographic, Sam Avell. He's got multiple covers of National Geographic. He's incredibly good at his craft of photography. He's very insightful about the human condition. And one of the things I did with Sam 5 years ago was a mentorship so that I could become a better photographer. I'd let it go since I was in my early 20s and came back to it. Sam taught me a simple phrase, compose and wait. Compose a frame, compose a setting, and wait for something interesting to happen. Well, here's what happened after that first mentorship. I'm with him in Santa Fe, New Mexico, in the western part of the United States. Early in the morning, I go down alone. I'm searching for an interesting composition. I'm in the downtown part of Santa Fe, and all of a sudden, unexpectedly, these old and new cars show up for a car show that day. It was intriguing. I was attracted to that car in the middle, the yellow one, the old one. I went up behind it. I composed, so I was right behind there, and I was looking through those front windows, and I was waiting for something interesting to happen through the front window. I took over 60 photographs. It took about 15 to 20 minutes. The sun was coming down. I was getting hot. My glasses actually broke. I'm still trying, and then I hear this voice behind me saying, "Would you like to get in the car? You might get better photographs." So, incredibly generous owner of the car let me into the car. Got inside, totally different view, got a wider angle lens, and then it's waiting time. It's like, okay, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then finally someone pokes their head in. He's like, "What are you doing in the backseat of this car?" And he pokes in a little bit further, and then he says, "Do you come with the car?" And I'm like, I had trouble not laughing, but I wanted to capture this photograph, this moment where I had the chance to connect with this wonderful stranger but human being, and we had a great laugh that ended up creating a photograph that looked inevitable, but it took a lot of work to compose and wait. I never would have gotten the car if I'd not been committed to the scene or the situation. The owner would not have let me in if I'd just taken a picture and walked by. It's that composing and waiting that makes all the difference. Let me give you a few examples. Compose and wait in St. Lucia Islands in the Caribbean. Compose and wait, 100th plus floor in Hong Kong. Compose and wait on the streets of London. Compose and wait nearby my home here in the Boston area on the Revere Beach. Compose and wait in the wintertime we're finally out of, north of our home here on the North Shore. All of those images I just showed you were the same story. 15, 20 minutes, composition, waiting for the moment. Sam and I now do a workshop through Santa Fe Photographic Workshops and MIT Executive Education to basically teach leaders how to become better photographers through how to become better questioners through photography. And here's what I want to tell you about that workshop. People are quick studies when it comes to composition. Here's how you create a better photograph. But the singular hardest thing for the leaders in this program to learn is the waiting part. And that's the part where we find incredibly interesting things coming. So now we're going to shift from photography with that framework, compose and wait, back to questions. So again, compose conditions. This is not taking photographs now, but compose situations, conditions, settings, and wait for questions. I once asked Clay Christensen a few years ago, how do you ask the better question? And he had me sit in a chair, sat me down, and then he stood by me and he said, pretend you're a manager and imagine that you've got all of these influences outside of you causing you to do things. That's how I think about how do we ask the better questions. What conditions cause us to ask the better questions? Here's what they look like. I put myself in settings with people in places where I, the leader, no matter where I am in the organization, I end up being wrong, not right. My mental model is challenged. It could be very fundamental in that challenge in a way that I am uncomfortable. This is awkward. And these leaders who ask the catalytic questions that move things forward, they don't run from being wrong and uncomfortable. They're reflectively quiet enough in order for the question to come. Compose those conditions and wait. That's basically how it works. Fadi Gondor used to be on the MIT Media Lab Advisory Board. I met him when I lived in Abu Dhabi. He founded a company called Aramex. He lives this compose and wait, wrong, uncomfortable, quiet all the time. He's the founder of the company. He's the owner of the company. He's the CEO. He's the top of the organization. He has every reason to not listen to people, but he goes out of his way to get out of that isolation. And so a number of years ago, he lands in Dubai, 2 o'clock in the morning. He's got a meeting later that day, about 8 o'clock in the morning. He's got to get from the airport to the hotel before his regional management meeting. Fadi's not thinking about convenience. How can I quickly get to the hotel? Fadi is actively seeking passive data. It's the information that does not come to him through his direct reports. It's the information that does not come to him through his traditional information systems. He's actively seeking the passive data sitting out there on the edge of the system. And so how does he get from the airport to the hotel at 2 o'clock in the morning? He asks a delivery truck driver from Aramex to pick him up in the middle of the night. And when they're driving to the hotel, Fadi asks lots of questions. What's working? What's not? Why? How might we do it differently? He shuts up and he listens after those questions. He's actively seeking that passive data. He gets the information that's crucial. And as a result, he ends up being able to figure out the system has some issues that otherwise wouldn't be fixed or seen. And that next day, he changes the agenda. They tackle those issues. And it was a set of questions that surfaced more questions on that ride from the airport to the hotel that allowed Fadi to work with a local team to make the system even better. You know, a quick contrast on that is literally Travis Kalanick a few years ago when he was the CEO. He was a co-founder, but he was the CEO then of Uber. He was traveling through, I think, New York. He's in the back of an Uber car. At the end of the ride, the driver starts complaining about the systems and how difficult it makes the work for him. Instead of being like Foddy, Travis Kalanick is after the driver. The driver's the problem, not the system, isn't listening. And as a result, you know the story, Travis ends up getting fired from Uber. And to me, it's a classic situation where if we're not actively seeking passive data, we end up getting blindsided. Now, what I'd like to do is look at your world for just a moment. In your world, we're going to do the polling app here. We're going to step back for a moment, and I'm going to send a question live. It's at questionburst.com, often best through your tablet or your phone. And this question I've got live. I'm going to put the results up. It's, when was the last time you were dead wrong about something? You got a range from today to you can't remember. I'll give us about 15 more seconds. And as that's finishing up, I'm going to give you some information about the data. So basically, on this dead wrong is, if I've not been dead wrong about something in the last week or at most 2 weeks, I'm probably living in a bubble. I'm isolated. People are telling me the things they think I want to hear, or they're not telling me the things I don't want to hear. That isolation is dangerous. And so this is an interesting signal. Am I isolated to the point that I'm not getting that crucial passive data? Now we're going to move to the next question real quickly. When was the last time people asked you uncomfortable questions? Today, maybe? A week ago? Feel free to keep answering there. I'm going to give you a signal on that. You probably were primed a little bit from my last response about being dead wrong. It's the same story. And it's basically, if it has been more than a week, just recycling here, if it's been more than a week that I'm uncomfortable, I'm probably isolated, probably not going to be asking the different question. Here's the next one. We're going to go to the next question. And this question is a little different. On average, how long do you wait quietly before others answer your questions? 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds? This is the reflective quiet part. If the questions are less than 2 seconds, everybody probably already knows the answers, which sometimes is important. But if we're trying to push the edge on a big challenge where we don't know what we're doing quite yet, asking questions that cause us to step back, reflectively think is crucial. And Deval Patrick used to be the governor here in Massachusetts. I interviewed him around this issue, and he said it's the power of the pause. It's that last 2 or 3 seconds where people start telling you things that otherwise you wouldn't hear. So just take a moment, think to yourself, how did you do on being wrong, uncomfortable, and quiet? And the good news is, if we want to ask better questions, we can by putting ourselves in these conditions more frequently in order for the better question to surface. That's the fundamental point here. Questioning is a muscle. We can learn it. And when we're operating in uncertainty, questions really do become the answers. You may have heard the story of Einstein reportedly saying that if he's given an hour to solve a problem, he takes 55 minutes to figure out the right question, and then the answer reveals itself. That's the premise here. So what I'd like to do, I'm going to go back here to those habits, those people I interviewed. They systematically put themselves in these conditions of being wrong and uncomfortable and quiet. And then they build habits into their everyday routines that help them ask questions other people don't see. Habit number 1, audit your questioning patterns. When you go back to work, whenever it is, Monday perhaps, depending on where in the world, perhaps tomorrow, Sunday, spend 24 hours auditing your questioning patterns. What questions go out of you? What questions come in your way? And then write them all down and look at them afterwards to see what are the patterns, where are they going, how productive are they? The second habit, whenever you're wandering into a new space, especially if there's any sense of uncertainty about what's going on here, and even if there's not, defaulting to asking, not telling, is a good way to approach the work as a challenge-driven leader. In other words, I'm here to ask questions, not to tell you. I'm here to learn, not to tell. Third habit, recursive questions can be powerful. Ed Catmull, one of the co-founders and former president of Pixar and Disney Animation Studios, told me good questions are recursive questions. They're ones that are worth asking over and over so we can create conversations to move things forward. Orit Gadish, who's on the board of trustees at MIT, I had the chance to interview her years ago for a prior research project, as well as recently about this power of inquiry. She regularly pays careful attention to and audits her own questioning patterns and those around her. She's very conscious of walking into a room, having an ask, not tell logic, and she's very committed to questions that make a difference, like, why are we even doing this? Now, you might say that's easy for the chairman of a big organization to ask, but when she was in her early 20s as a first-time consultant, she was sent to Japan to help the steel industry in Japan change their ways. So imagine this decades ago, woman in Japan, that was her question then. Why are we even doing this? There was a company she worked with that had 200 plus in their product line products. And she's like, it doesn't make sense. She was repetitive about why are we doing this? And at the end of the day, they squoze that down to 10 or 5% of those in order to be far more successful, but it was all focused on why are we even doing this? Now, even if we audit our patterns of questions, even if we approach a setting where we could be wrong and comfortable and quiet with this ask, not tell logic, and even if we ask good recursive questions, what's working, what's not, why, what if, how might, then we have one more thing we've got to do. And that is crafting questions that are very relevant to the moment, the context, the challenge, the issue. And those catalytic questions are rarely, if ever, found in a book. From Mark Benioff at Salesforce, the founding of Salesforce, creating cloud computing decades ago, he would not have found in a book, what if we sold enterprise level software like Amazon sells books in a book? He had to get to that question through a quest. Which reminds me, Elie Wiesel had a phenomenal quote he made after going through a very dark period in his life in the concentration camps of Europe in World War II. He came to this conclusion. He said, I love the word question, and there's a word I love in that word question, quest. Crafting these catalytic questions is a quest. That's what we're about. So I want to just for a moment context some work we're going to do about a challenge you're facing in the world that we're living in. We all know that the COVID-19 has changed our world dramatically in every possible way. And it's for you, it's for me, it's for our children, our grandchildren, our neighbors, our friends, our coworkers, our colleagues, all of us. And as I've been going through the experience like you have, I've started to realize part of what's going on here is exactly what people experience when they move to foreign countries. It's like we are moving to a foreign land with this whole coronavirus. I mean, I never would have asked myself 6 months ago, how do I wash my hands? I honestly didn't know how to wash my hands. We've got an ER room nurse in one of the Boston area hospitals here who taught me how to wash my hands right. When and where do I wear a face mask? How do I clean my package off if it comes to my door? How do I get food now? And those are largely first world questions because for one of our daughters lives in Nairobi and the question there might be simply, will I get food? And it's more complicated now than ever in some of these contexts. And so what I'm trying to say here is that we have all, because of this crisis, we have been tossed into a cauldron where we're learning new things that we never had to do before, or relearning. And that to me feels exactly like going to a new foreign country, almost the country of coronavirus. I did research for a decade plus on leaders moving from country to country, and here's what it looks like. They have to change the way they do their work when they move to a foreign country. They have to change the way they interact socially. They have to change the way they go about just general cultural things, going to the doctor, buying food, transportation, fill in the blank. Does that feel like our time? It does to me. Just today, one of our granddaughters had a birthday party. We live in a small community. A fire truck and a police car got in the front and back of a long row of cars. And we drove by our granddaughter's house to wish her happy birthday. I mean, we are in a very different world than we all know it. And the challenge is the following. We are just like going through all of these adjustments at work and in our social interactions and just the general way we go about things. When people go overseas, there's this adjustment process. There's an initial honeymoon, everything's fine. And they learn after a month or so that they're screwing up and making mistakes. And about month 3, they're ready to give up and go home, which is when many of them do go home. And then they bottom out roughly 3 to 9 months into the experience. And if they can keep going, at about 12 months, they tend to adapt and succeed. I'm like, that's what it feels like for me. I'm still learning a lot. And when people go home, it's really interesting. It's no different. You'll notice there at the bottom, I just changed a word. In fact, going home after living in a foreign country is culturally harder than going to the foreign country in the first place. Generally, we have less autonomy at work. We think that the world has not changed and we've not changed, but we have. And when we go home after living and working overseas, it's a complete surprise. And as a result, for more than half of the people going home, it's harder than when they went on the international assignment. I know that may sound off base in terms of what we're talking about, but I think it's completely on. All of us are in the middle of these big curves. Either, in one sense, the foreign country thing is going to work at home for many of us. And now the going home part for many of us is going to be a whole new set of adjustment curves. Now, all of that leads to a couple of things that are important for us to remember. These adjustment curves are just like Kubler-Ross's grief cycle, where we have a loss, in this case, the loss of a loved one, a death. And there's a process we go through emotionally, behaviorally, cognitively, that we have to go through in order to make progress. And so in this new country of coronavirus, we've all lost a lot. And my losses may be yours and yours may be mine, and you might think mine are small, but yours are large, but we've all lost a lot. And when we've lost those things, we in the middle of all this have lost one of our close family pets unexpectedly to death. And it was one of many things going on that just like devastated us. When that happens, and we're going through so many changes and challenges right now, we then get fragile and vulnerable. And then we're flooded with emotions that cause us to react strangely in a work setting because of something that happened at home. So here's why I'm sharing all of this. As MIT alumni, staff, faculty, students, etc., we have a bias towards action. We have a bias towards solving things. We have a bias towards rationality, which is all important. But at the end of the day, now that we're either working from home or starting to go back wherever we are in the world, it's remembering, it's this logic of stop, breathe, think, act. Stop, breathe, question, act. It's not don't just stand there, do something. It's don't just do something, stand there. So my suggestion, for what it's worth, is when you go back into that world that you're in, if you're in the transition back into your workplace or not, it's just remembering that we're all living through lots of losses. We're in the middle of these adjustment curves, and the challenges are significant. and they're emotional, and that we need to respond to that as we try to move our challenges forward. So here we go. We're going to now do an exercise around a challenge that you care deeply about. It's an exercise that you can do at any point in time. It recreates, whether you're alone with other people, conditions of being wrong and uncomfortable and quiet. I would like you to think of a challenge that is one of your biggest challenges right now. You're going to be doing this alone just for about 60 seconds. And what you're going to be doing is writing down nothing but questions about this challenge. But I'd like you to think of a challenge you care deeply about. And what I'm going to do is shift over to the polling app. I'd invite you to type in, here we go. Please, as many of you as possibly can, type in your challenge during the next 15 to 20 seconds. Just type it in. It won't show yet. When all those challenges are in, I'm going to show a word map that summarizes the essence of all of these challenges. So pick a challenge you care about, one that's important, could be personal, could be professional. Just pick one that matters, that you're stuck on. And please, if people could just type them in, it'd be fantastic, because it'd be good to see the context. Keep typing in. I'll recycle this in a moment. Finding new work, job, huge issue for so many people. Wow. Seems to be a dominant issue. These are big issues. Seriously big issues. So what I'd like to do now is the following. I'd like you to basically type in one word, please. And I'm not going to show the results now. So please, everybody type in one word. How do you feel emotionally about that challenge right now? Just put in one word as quickly as you can. How do you feel emotionally about the challenge right now? I didn't realize I was sending. I'm sorry. It was in the prior one. So there we go. If you could put that in now, that would be fantastic. I'm going to give us about 10 more seconds, because this is really important to see where are we emotionally as we're facing these challenges that we're in the middle of. Thank you, all those who are contributing. Makes a difference. Keep putting in, the data's going to be in there, but these are the words I typically see: overwhelmed, frustrated, stressed, anxious, tired. Boy. Okay. We're going to come back to that. Now what I'm going to do is come to the following. We're going to engage in an exercise really fast that will help us move forward, given that we don't feel really positive at the moment, most of us. So here's the deal. 20 years ago, I'm working with leaders around gender equity issues in an organization, and we are in the middle of a meeting and we're stuck and the energy level's low. We don't know what to do to make a difference. And I had this insight: let's just stop and fill the blackboards. This was days of blackboards with all the questions we can. 10 minutes later, energy level went to positive, new ideas, new directions, reframed, and all just because we asked nothing but questions. So that's what I'm going to invite you to do on your own with a piece of paper and a pen or pencil, or your tablet or your computer or your phone. I want you to do that. Generate nothing but questions, and here are the rules. When we ask questions, sometimes we explain why we're asking the question. Don't do that. When we ask questions, sometimes we want to answer questions. Don't do that either. Because the stuff before the question and the stuff after the question, the answers, That is filler information that keeps us stuck. Think of it like concrete or cement holding us in place. The rules here are no preambles or explanations before the question, no answers after the question. I know you're going to be doing it in your own head, so you're going to be disciplined about this, and I know you can do it. And if you discipline yourself for 90 seconds to ask nothing but questions about the challenge, no explanations, no answers, 85% of us, this is data from about 5,000 people, 85% of us will make progress on the challenge. So that's what I want you to do. Take 90 seconds. I will set my timer. Try to get at least 10 questions. Ask tough questions of yourself. No one's going to see them. Get them out. I'll be quiet now. Go. 90 seconds. So at least 5 or 6 questions. You've got 60 more seconds. Thirty more seconds left. Try to get at least 10 questions. Almost there. Got it. Okay. Here we go, folks. You did it. Here's what I want us to do. We're going to go back to the same polling app. What I'd like you to do is put in 1 or 2 words that best capture how you now feel about the challenge. It might be the same, it might be different. Just 1 or 2 words. How do you feel now about the challenge? As quickly as you can, please put those in. I see different words: focused, curious, hopeful, empowered, some sad, energized, resolve. I'm going to recycle it one more time. There we go. Curious, focused, empowered, hopeful. What I'd like to do now is ask the same question in a little bit different way. It's a simple from I feel a lot better to I feel a lot worse, and it can give us another angle on the same data that's very helpful. So this is live, dynamic. Please, there we go. I'm going to put it in. There we go. Now, as you're filling that in, I'm going to tell you a couple of things. You remember that the pre-set of, before the question burst, it was mostly negative words: frustrated, overwhelmed, and afterwards, hopeful, curious, positive, optimistic. That gets reflected in this data as well. We know from research that when we're trying to get a new question and a new insight that's valuable, a more positive emotional state is going to help us get there. So this is why literally taking 2 minutes to step back, stop, ask nothing but questions actually helps us emotionally move into a better place in order to move things forward. Now, for what it's worth, about 10% of the time people feel worse after doing this. And that's because they've often discovered that they're a part of the problem they didn't think they were, and the problem's a lot bigger than they ever thought it was. But 80% of the time, the data would say, 80% of the time, we move actually to a more positive emotional place. So now I'm gonna ask you a different question. It's basically, after doing this question burst, have you reframed your challenge, seeing it a little bit differently? And it could range from seeing it the same to seeing it a lot differently. Let's see what we've got here. Peek around, there we go. So this is what the data say from those 5,000 other people. 85% of the time, it slightly reframes the issue. That's what's going on here. Final question, and this one is related to, did you discover one or two new ideas that might help you make progress on the challenge? Yes or no? Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And for what it's worth, the data at the broader level, literally several thousand data points, 85% of the time, just like it's showing here, people get at least one new idea they didn't have before. So thank you for your participation on that part in the polls. This is the data I was telling you about. Big data set, frustrated, hopeful, optimistic, 80% of the time feel better, 80% of the time reframing, 85% of the time they go a different direction with some new ideas. All I can say is if you take the time, even at home, sitting at your desk alone, or ideally get one or two people, get on a Zoom call, heaven forbid another Zoom call, but get some other people engaged, get family members engaged, ask other people to do this about your challenge, do it with them, and here's what happens. We're exposing ourselves by saying we don't know things. We're exposing ourselves by being vulnerable with a challenge that we really care about, we're stuck on. We're forced to be reflectively quiet because we can't answer any of the questions. And if people do their work during that 2 to 4 minutes, I would suggest 4 minutes. If people do their work asking tough questions, we will feel wrong and uncomfortable. And those conditions of being wrong, uncomfortable, and quiet will help us start to ask the better question. This process rarely, if ever, gives us the solution, but it helps us move forward. And at a time with the coronavirus, with us having all these losses and challenges in our lives and transitions and changes and adjustments, we just need to make progress. That's the point. So let me give you a couple of quick examples. A couple of years ago, Kevin Brown, Chief Supply Chain Officer at Dell Computer globally, he and his team are stuck on a really important strategic issue. We get together as a team in a conference room. We put into 4 corners 5 people from each part of his team. In those corners, they have a huge bunch of Post-it notes, and they are tasked with generating 100 questions per team about the challenge. Once they do that, they then look at them. They decide what's the most important set of questions here. They do another 40 more questions. Then they spend time figuring out what are the 5 or 6 questions that we should care about, that we would recursively ask as we wander the world in order to move this challenge forward. We'll engage in conversations. We'll engage in watching the world with these questions. It helped them move forward. At a similar point with Abby Johnson at Fidelity Investment, starting on the top with her and her senior team, we literally taught this methodology through most of the senior leadership, 1,000 or 2 people. I'm not saying all of them use it, but they do use it often when they're facing challenges that matter. She said a question burst helps us go beyond what first appears and really probes the root issues. Now, I'll give you some very formalized examples. Whatever challenge you're in the middle of, this is a method. In addition to putting yourself in situations where you're wrong, uncomfortable, and quiet, this method does it for you. And it can be done even informally. A little while ago, I was with a good friend at dinner. And the example I'm going to share now will teach you not to come to dinner with Hal Gregerson. We're at dinner, we're having a conversation. He's the CEO of a very large not-for-profit organization. He's also a father, and his daughter is becoming a teenager, his oldest daughter. And what he was trying to figure out is, how do I keep my relationship strong with her? Because she's starting to pull away and pull towards her friends. What am I going to do? It was an honest question. He deeply cared about it. I said, if we ask nothing but questions about it, we might make some progress. And so that's what we did. We got some napkin, a pen, we wrote down questions, we set a timer, 4 minutes. These are the questions. Here we go. Do I listen enough? Do I want to tend to solve or act too much? Do I push too hard? Do I hover too much? What's she best at? Do I recognize that? When do her eyes sparkle? What hurts the most about the relationship and why? What do her eyes say when she expresses concern? How do her talents complement yours? And he asked, am I a good father? It's a tough question. What are her greatest worries? How does your schedule signal what matters most to you? What's uniquely independent about her, and so on? We got to the end of these questions, and he and I were sobered, because these are sobering questions. I was thinking about my own relationship with my children and grandchildren. We got to the end, and then he, with real emotion, thought for a moment quietly, and he said, I realized I was asking the wrong question about how can I keep my relationship strong with her? The question I should be asking is, how can I help her find her? And changing that question ended up changing the relationship for the better. What I'm trying to say here is that questions hold this unique and surprising power to move things forward. They're catalytic in nature. They can help us make a difference that otherwise we wouldn't make. And so I think you're already good at it. I hope that what we've talked about can help elevate your capability, your skill level, to take it forward even further. And with that, we're going to move now to some questions and answers and see where we go for the last 10 minutes together.
Hal, thank you so much. That was a fabulous presentation.
Thank you.
We do have some questions that people have been thinking about. So the first one I'd like to ask is, this is sort of a general MIT question. What is the most thought-provoking question you've heard at MIT?
Without thinking any further about it, when I first came to MIT, I did not expect to hear where's the data so much as I hear it here. Now, that may not in one sense be thought-provoking, but when you're really trying to figure something out, Adam Stelzer, who worked on the Jet Propulsion Laboratory trying to put together these rovers that are going to go on Mars, and they had no idea whether they're going to work or not. He wrote a book about his experience, and he called it, there was a chapter in the book called Truth Seeking. And he ended up, that sounds like a religious term almost, but for him it was like, we're just trying to ask the questions to get to the truth of the matter so this stupid rover will work. And I guess my response to what's the question is like, for me, that where's the data question being so pervasive often forces me to rethink the way I'm looking at the world.
Definitely.
But I'm going to think about it because there's a deeper answer to it that I don't have right at the moment.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll circle back at the end.
Yeah.
We definitely have so we have a question about essentially like what's going on today, actually. So it starts with, the world needs more understanding and more compassion. So that's sort of a general statement. Yeah. The US is going through a tough time right now with George Floyd's case and his death. So how can we reframe our mental models through others' experiences? How can we, like what questions would bring us more to understanding the situation that's going on today?
Jeff Wilke, who is a graduate of MIT, is the CEO of Consumer Worldwide at Amazon. I interviewed him, and I think this quote is very relevant, and I want to read it. If you never ask questions and you never experience anything new, your mental model becomes stale. If you seek out things you don't know and have the courage to be wrong and ignorant, to ask more questions and be embarrassed socially, then I think you'll build a more complete model, a model that will serve you well through the course of your life. And my answer to that is, when I go back to that, when we are emotionally flooded and when we are feeling vulnerable and fearful, we often converge on our way of looking at the world as the only way. And what I'm trying to invite here in this very difficult moment in the US and beyond, it's take a deep breath. Whether it's the person you're going to talk to in 10 minutes, or whether you're engaging with these very volatile racial and other issues, it's like, where am I wrong, not right here? What am I missing? Let me share an example from my own home sitting here. There are moments, believe it or not, when my wife behaves in ways that make no sense to me. Like, given the situation, it's like, why are you doing that? And I've learned through sad experience that whenever I come to that conclusion of, why are you doing that? There's always something else going on. If I don't take the time to figure out what else is going on, I'm like a bull in the china shop, shoving people right and left throughout. And that's, I guess, my response. It's, if we would just step back and be a little more disconfirming in our hypothesis testing. What am I wrong about today? What else could be going on here? What am I missing? Because I am missing stuff. I think all of us, whether at home or in our neighborhoods, our communities, or our countries, it sounds simplistic, I know, but these best of the best leaders who help move things forward, it's just how they do it.
Definitely. We're running short on time, but I have maybe one more question, which it's more of a process type question, but I think many people will have it.
Yeah.
So we talked about the question bursts and generating a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Do we also answer them?
Well, I would, if we had time, I'd do one more survey item. And the question would be, what is one word you would use to describe people who ask 1,000 questions? And I don't care what country I'm in, on any place on planet Earth, the answer is almost always one singular word: annoying. And so I am absolutely not advocating questioning for questioning's sake. That's egocentric. It's all about being clever and looking good. I could care less about that. When I'm trying to generate the better question to actually solve a problem or challenge, and I ask a question, but then I'm willing to take responsibility to do something about the question, I'm no longer annoying. And all I'm trying to say here is that when we're operating in a world of extreme uncertainty, when we don't know what we don't know, questions are the means by which we make incremental progress. We question, we answer. Answers become a stepping stone to the next question. And if we stop creating those stepping stones, we will get stuck again.
Got it. Well, Hal, we're pretty much out of time. I think, once again, this was a fabulous presentation. I think we had some really good engagement via our questions. So once again, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Hope.
Yes, and everyone for joining. Thank you as well. The Alumni Association also thanks you for taking the time to be with us today. And Hal, thank you again for sharing your work with the alumni community from the US, around the globe, everywhere.
Thank you. Thanks, Hope, for taking your time to do the moderating part today.
Definitely, I enjoyed it. So once again, everyone, thank you for joining us from the Alumni Association, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. And for more information on how to connect with the MIT Alumni Association, please visit our website.